So could we have a constitutional convention? Yes, it would be effectively a revolution. But if all 50 states agreed to it, then yeah, we could do that. But we're not going to. And we're not advocating that. We're advocating an Article 5 convention, which, using Article 5's own language, is a convention for the purposes of proposing amendments. You want to use Virginia's language from 1788. It's a convention of the states. We've chosen that lingo to be the clearest example, because it conveys the correct truth about one state, one vote. It's a convention of states, not a convention of delegates, it's a convention of states. So a constitutional convention has plenary authority to do anything it wants, but it can only be called under the residual sovereignty of all the participants. And so, not happening. Yes, sir.
What I'm looking for is to get the convention called. And I would like to know your personal feeling on what amendments would you prioritize as most important to get passed through the convention? Say your first top three, for example.
First top, can I have 4? Okay. All right, 4. Repeal the general welfare clause's misinterpretation. Have the rule that the federal government cannot spend money on any topic within the jurisdictional competence of the states. That's 1. That stops the federal spending abuse. Number 2, fix the Commerce Clause. No longer will they be able to, the EPA goes away with this with entirely federal. It is that Congress can regulate shipping only under the Commerce Clause. That's it, nothing else. Number 3, with regulation of the spending, you put a balanced budget amendment in. And the way I would write the balanced budget amendment is this. There are 3 crucial tricks of writing the balanced budget amendment. First, you have to define the income source. Well, is it going to be a percentage of the national? No. The actual income, the rolling average for the last 3 years, a fixed prior amount. That's the amount. So, or you could just take the prior year and say, how much money do we actually bring in? That's the amount you can spend. Then you define spend as either a cash expenditure or incurring a liability. Like promising people you're going to pay your Social Security down the road. That's a liability, that's spending. Then you're going to have some kind of an override procedure. My overrides are, if there's a declared war, no more of these phony undeclared wars. If there's a declared war, then you get an override. And you're going to have something for a national emergency. But if you try to define emergency, it's going to end up being, if it's windy outside, or if it's Thursday, it's an emergency. So you use process to ensure that only true emergencies count. And so my process is, if 75% of both houses of Congress agree that there's an emergency, you get a 1-year override. The 3rd year in a row that they vote to do an override, every member of Congress is permanently ineligible for re-election. And so, if it was really, in the national interest, if there really was an emergency that was longer than 3 years, and they were going to be statesmen and lay down their offices for the good of the country, we don't stop them from doing the 3rd year. But they just simply can't do it to gain re-election, because the moment they do that 3rd year, they're gone. They get to finish their term, but then they're gone. And so that, and then the 4th one is fix the Supreme Court, like I told you earlier, have the states appoint the Supreme Court. So those are my top 4. Executive orders is right behind that. Fixing the treaty process is right behind that.
Based on what I've read in the constitutional law books, I'd say I'd go with the Supreme Court first. Article 1, Section 9 is an awkward exclusivity grant of authority over migration to the states until 1808. Now I say it's awkward because it granted that exclusivity to the states and then allowed the Congress to prohibit their regulation in that area. And this has created significant tension now, because a lot of the jurisdictional claims, their right to rule on naturalization, which is completely different from immigration, have now surfaced. And the states have a very vested and significant interest in the regulation of immigration into their states by non-naturalized residents of the United States. Do you anticipate this being clarified during this Article 5 gathering?
The short answer is the issue of immigration is germane under our application. It's lawful for them to discuss it and to have proposals. I don't have a thoroughly thought through idea myself. I mean, my Supreme Court suggestion, my general welfare, those have been thought through a lot, and those are mature answers. This, I can give an immature answer, and I wouldn't really want to do it. But it is germane, and people that are of the same political basic philosophy that I am would be the people on the floor that could talk about that. And whether or not it would come out as a fix, I don't know. But one of the things that would happen is one of the reasons the federal government does such a bad job of immigration is they're just too busy trying to run all of our lives, because they're trying to do so many different things. Rather than doing a few things well, they do many things poorly. And they've done a bad job of protecting our borders. They've done a bad job of enforcing the existing law. Immigration, as the Constitution is currently written, really is a federal power. They really have legitimate authority. But they're muffing it up on a regular basis. And so we need to, the fix on this may be as simple as take almost all their domestic jurisdiction away from them so they can focus on immigration. And if we're electing people to Congress, and the only issues that we care about are what they've got on their table, which is foreign policy, national defense, and immigration, then we're going to get a different class of congressmen and senators than if we're voting on people who are going to, well, I'm going to fund your schools, and I'm going to give you an Obama phone, and I'm going to do this. And, a lot of people that want to go to Washington now lose interest in going to Washington. So it's germane. We need answers. This process can give you answers one way or the other.
All right, with the 17th Amendment, the state's last voice in Washington was taken away, and so I would argue we still have concurrent jurisdiction because Congress can pass a law tomorrow giving us jurisdiction back. I mean, under Article 1, Section 9.
Your arguments are plausible, and whether, but they're based on Congress doing something.
I would.
Probability greatly diminished.
Favreau, whatever, I'm sorry, and Scott Bushmill.
Can the, short of the Amendment 5 process, or Article 5 process, can the FDR era Supreme Court opinion on general welfare of the people overturned?
Sure. The question is, could we overturn the general welfare opinion of the FDR era? Sure we could. And that's why I've been training people at Patrick Henry College to go be Supreme Court justices. I am not interested in fighting this battle in only one venue. I have taught constitutional law to homeschool kids through an internet course for about 20 years now. My best estimate is I've taught about 20,000 kids this year. I teach constitutional law to students at Patrick Henry College. I train the moot court team. My moot court team has won 8 of the last 10 national championships. They're going to top law schools. They're getting federal judicial clerkships. They're on the path to becoming Supreme Court justices. And will they get there? Well, it's only if I can, some of the other people that I've helped to train and other people who think like them, whether I train them or not, get like the president and the Senate and so on. So I'm working all those traditional sides and have been working them for a long time, but I don't believe that we have the time to let my students get to the Supreme Court, because the earliest that could happen would be about 30 years from now. I'm not willing to wait 30 more years and let this stuff happen. But 30 years from now, there is a plausible path, because frankly, why did I get to do this Article 5 case when I was 30 years old and way over my head in terms of my experience? I don't think I was over my head in terms of my willingness to fight, but I was over my head in terms of experience. My generation just couldn't field the team. And the generation before me couldn't field the team. There was no lawyer in Washington State with the training or the gumption to take on the feds. And I had the gumption and some of the training, and so I did it. So we've got to train new troops who have both training and gumption. And I've been at this for a long time, training troops. But that's the only other answer, and I'm not willing to wait that long.
What's the definition of natural-born citizen as in Obama? And could this be clarified in the Amendment 5 process?
Well, my view of a natural-born citizen is that Ted Cruz is a natural-born citizen, because the best evidence is that if you're born in the United States, you are a natural-born citizen, regardless of your parents, period. But yes, we could clarify this, and we should clarify this. I mean, on this one, the states could do something right now and should do something right now, and that is simply, before you allow people to get on the ballot in your state for President of the United States, you should be required to furnish physical evidence that you're a natural-born citizen. And so that's something that we need to start with. But I'm not sure that we could fix all this. One thing I guess I need to caution all of us, including myself. The idea that we're going to fix everything at once isn't going to happen. We just need to make substantial progress to make sure that we have a shot to preserve liberty over time, and we live to fight another day. And if we move the ball effectively down the field 20, 30, 40 yards, we've done a really good thing, because the ball's been going backwards for a long, long time. And we just got to start moving in the right direction in a big way, not 2 inches. We can't survive on 2 inches. We've got to have 20, 30, 40, 50 yards. And if we don't fix everything, like the natural-born citizenship thing, okay, I'm willing to fight that another day. But I want to fix the other thing. Not that it's not big, it's an important deal. Lots of that. Yes, sir.
And lastly, I hadn't heard anything about what's happening in Tallahassee, but who and what in Tallahassee is leading the charge in the floor of the legislature to get the state convention process approved?
Well, thank you for asking. I should have talked about that, and I apologize. That's my bad. Our application has already passed the floor of the Senate. Senator Alan Hayes is our lead sponsor. Representative Metz is our lead sponsor in the House. It is scheduled. It's been all the way through the committee process. We've won it all the way through that. We're waiting for final vote on May the 21st or thereabouts April the 21st or thereabouts for the final passage. So if you are on board, please call your House of Representatives and a member and urge them to vote yes. If you're against it, please call your members of Congress and complain, because they don't have any vote on this. So,
Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome.
There seems to be some momentum building for this, but what is your timetable for this convention actually occurring?
Thank you. Excellent question. Georgia, our state director of Georgia, one of our district captains for Georgia is here someplace. And, so we got part of our Georgia. Georgia is the only state that's all the way through. We've been at this since August. Really, kind of in real, true organizational, really since October. And so Georgia's passed it all the way. 4 states have passed it in one house, Florida being one of them, Alabama being one, Alaska being one, Arizona being one. We have very good reason to believe that Alaska is going to actually beat Florida to the number 2 position. And so Alaska should pass it within the next 7 to 10 days. They're going to adjourn in about 12 days. So, and it's all queued up, ready to go, and we believe we have the votes. So, Arizona's a tough fight. The House, we've won. Senate, we've got a Senate president that believes in Warren Burger. And so we've got a problem with it. So we're going to fight this civil. I don't know how that's going to come out. Alabama, we ran out of time this year to get through both houses. We'll get it back next year. Missouri is still moving. It's possible we're going to pass it in Missouri, and we may just get one house this year. And South Carolina and North Carolina are still moving. I'm hopeful that both of those will pass it. All that to say, we're getting a beachhead in this our first year. Next year, I think we'll get about 20 states. And then the following year, Lord willing, we'll get the balance to get to 34 in 2016. If it takes one more year, I won't be upset. If it takes much longer than that, I don't know that America has that much time. So my goal is 16 with 17 as my rainy day option. And then you have the convention, which I think will take about 6 months. And then you're on the ratification side. And I think that will take 2 to 5 years.
Assuming that this passes on 34 and 40 states, what's to keep a Harry Reid or somebody in Congress from just sitting on it, putting it in the circular file and forgetting about it?
They don't have that choice. They don't have a vote.
But it doesn't take a mechanism for them to call the convention, set the
Okay,
site,
all right.
make the agenda.
Yeah, well, they don't get to make the agenda. If they, two things will happen if they refuse to execute their mandatory duties, which I don't think they'll do. For political reasons, I don't think they will. I think the reason I think that is they think that they can control the Democrat 17 states to stop us from getting to 38. And so I think I can beat them at that by out-organizing them. Washington State's one of the states I'm counting on. I grew up in Washington State. I broke into politics in Washington State. I've looked the maps over. I've got a plan to take Washington State from them by winning off the rural Democrat seats, keep the Republican seats solid. You beat them in the rural Democrat seats. I think I can get the Democrats to vote for it, or else I'll replace it. And so, you go to that level of the game, but so they won't. They're not so stupid as to. You have 34 state legislatures passing this. They're going to do it because it will look so bad. They're going to, because they think they've got an ace in the hole with 38 states.
So I've got a hope and a prayer that they're going to do it? Or
No, if they don't,
is there somebody there with a shotgun or something that's going to make them do it? That's my whole question.
Well, first of all, there's two backups. First, I would sue them, and I believe, I'm confident I would win. But if they don't, the states just hold it anyway, and just dare them to try to stop us. And so I don't believe that there's any legitimate fear that they can pull that off successfully. If they try to do that, here's what would happen. A real revolution would be the result. If they would dare to absolutely ignore the Constitution of the United States, if they got away with it, then a real revolution. Because today, they will tell you, none of them will admit that they ignore the Constitution. None of them will admit it. They claim that they're ignoring the Constitution, and the Supreme Court gives them cover. But if they refuse to do their duty on something that's really clear, you've got 34 states with identical wording, and they refuse to call it, they will provoke an actual revolution. And I don't think they would roll that dice.
Isn't Harry Reid going to be out of the picture next January?
Hopefully, yeah.
Up on deck is Ed Foster, Carlos Edward, Hope Joseph, Perez, did whatever you want to call yourself. And I can't believe he did that to me. And Brian D.
Okay.
My name is Scott Bushnell, and I have a question which I plead total ignorance of, so for my education, I'm sure everyone here knows the answer. What is the legal basis that exists that requires we, citizens or Congress, to obey Supreme Court rulings, which are really interpretations of my
The supremacy clause of the Constitution declares the Constitution to be the supreme law of the land. And you don't have, no one in this room has a duty to obey any Supreme Court decision unless you are the litigant in front of the court and the court has issued an order with your name on it that says you've got to do X. And if they've ordered you to do X, then you have to do it. And if you don't do what they tell you to do, they'll send the U.S. Marshals to go get you and make you do it one way or the other. You'll get in jail. There are ways to do that, but it only applies to the people who are actually in the litigation. So why do we treat it as more than that? It's because the officials that are in charge of other applications of the same law are going to follow what they said. And because they will follow what they said and the other courts will follow, you're just predicting what will happen to you if you disobey their orders. So you're technically not bound by an order of the Supreme Court. It's just a predictive ability. You want to go to jail? Well, try it. See what happens to you. You're not officially bound. No state is officially bound by Roe versus Wade, except for Texas. It was, the law that was on the books in Texas was declared unconstitutional. Texas was bound. But all the states can say, well, if we don't, then our law is going to be happening the same thing to us. And they get in line because of that. You could, and this would be my backup plan, if the Supreme Court doesn't do what they're supposed to do after we change the way they pick it, is you could pass a rule that says a decision of the Supreme Court is binding on the parties of the case only and creates no precedent whatsoever. So that's the backup plan. We're back. Yeah, good deal.
Question, who will determine and who will actually comprise, how many delegates will there be representing each state? Or how will that be determined?
Every state gets to decide for themselves how many they want to send. And they can decide who they are, and they will give them their instructions. And so if Florida wants to send 9, fine, they can send 9. If Rhode Island wants to send 15, they can send 15. New York wants to send 35, they can send 35. They get one vote. And so, however they want to do it, the state's got to pay for their own delegation. However they want to do it, they can do it. They get one vote. Now, the rules of the convention that are being worked on right now by a coalition of state legislators that met at Mount Vernon last December, and those rules are not official until the convention convenes and they vote them in. But the win always goes to the prepared. Our team is preparing. Our team not meaning our organization, but I mean the people that are in support of the principles that I'm talking about are writing